200 of water, 100 grams of flour, and then what I want to do is heat it up on the stove, and I'll show you once we've cooked it. We've got a consistency that is mashed potato. This will go into the dough mix, and I need it to cool down first before we start mixing the dough. One has cooled down, so we will get that into our fermenting tub. Next, we're going to add just normal tap water and add 500 grams. And then I reckon I usually end up using about a third to a half of a packet of yeast. These are 12 gram little packets of yeast. Sprinkle a bit on that. Doesn't have to be much, because actually, again, the slower the fermentation, the more flavoursome. Takes a little bit longer, but that's okay. I'm happy to wait. The last thing other than the flour is a tablespoon of sugar. You could add honey, you could add malt, you could add, well, any sugar really. The bagel dough is a slightly enriched or sweetened dough. So we've added 500 of water, a sprinkle of sugar, a sprinkle of the yeast, and now we're going to add 700 of flour. I use a mixture of plain white and unbleached baker's white. Right, that's 700. Give that a quick stir. So it is a wet dough, but it's okay because each little item is quite small, so you get away with a higher hydration if you're not the world's greatest shaper. I am not the world's greatest shaper. So I don't forget the salt. I sprinkle the salt on top. We will put roughly 10 grams. And I'm going to leave that for between half an hour and an hour to autolyse before I come and roughly mix the salt in. It has been an hour where we have let the water, the flour, the little bit of sugar and the yeast all sit together. I sprinkled the salt on top so that I didn't forget it, and I'm now just going to give it a rough mix so that we can let it bulk ferment overnight. And you can already tell this dough is going to be really nice. It's silky and it's smooth and I've got about the right feel and consistency. Hasn't got any strength yet, but it is early days. What's so funny, girls? I think they're laughing at me making a video. Okay, so there it is, roughly shaped. And so the bagel dough has been proving overnight in the fridge. It might say it's just gone over. That's okay though. I think the bagels seem to tolerate variations in how much it's been fermented, so it should be fine. Let it sit on the bench for half an hour, and now I'm just going to measure out 150s little dough balls. Specifically, I'm not adding any more flour. I'm going to wet shape them as much as possible. They will need a little bit of flour to shape them into the final product, and I'll show you that as we go. So there's 9 and one little bit extra, which is 100 grams. That will end up being the kids, maybe 3 or 4 of the kids' dough balls. So now, just got to shape them into little balls. Again, not adding any more flour. You're just moving your hands through the dough as least as you can, doing a few little folds so that you get the start of a ball. So I'm just sort of stretching and folding them over a little bit like that, and then just bring them to each other. It's kind of the same process, shaping process that I use for bigger amounts of dough for bread, but I'm kind of using these bits of my hands to pull the fingers to pull the dough and give it a little bit of a skin. In the meantime, I'm going to prepare a couple of baking sheets that I'm going to spray with oil so that I can put those onto the baking sheets ready to be boiled. So this is the shaping method that I have come up with for quite wet dough bagel. It looks a bit clunky and it's probably not textbook, but it seems to work for me. So I'll show you, albeit that there'll be other places you can find information about how to do it. So the first thing I want to do is just, the dough's been resting for 20 minutes in little balls, and I want to just tighten up those balls again. This is where I will use plenty of flour. So just again, get them really tight. Then all I'm going to do is then on a sort of bed of flour, make sure they're not going to stick now. And I also want some flour on my finger. I'm going to make the hole and then gradually spin the bagel so that I'm getting a uniform, and then I'll stretch it out a little bit, uniform ring. I don't want it to stick too much to the baking sheet, and you can see the baking sheet here has got oil on it, so I'll do another one of those. And it is a wet dough, so it will be really sticky, but that's okay. There is a top and a bottom to bagels, so keep the top and keep the bottom the bottom, because the bottom won't look as nice. It'll still be great once it's cooked, and I will show you that, but it doesn't look as pretty at this stage. It is also helpful to know the top and the bottom when you boil the bagels, and again, remind me, I will cover that. Do one more in slow speed, and then I'll speed the rest up so that you don't have to watch me shaping 9 bagels. So, dough ball, little surface of flour, just so it doesn't stick, little bit of flour on the finger that I'm going to use inside, and then spin it around until you get a nice ring, and then a little bit of extra turning. You can see there's a bottom and there is a top, and it's not sticking to my fingers now because it's got a nice covering of flour, and then that goes onto the baking parchment. We'll bring this baking parchment into view so you can see what the bagels are looking like once they have been shaped. The kids' dough ball. Just make that into a kind of sausage. This will make, they like this as small as I can get them, so we'll halve these and so I'll have some little ones. Perfect. And they'll just go straight into the oven as it's heating up while I'm boiling the bagels. There we go. Okay, so while these are resting for another half an hour, the bagels, I am going to boil up some water. You need a relatively big tub so you can boil 2 or 3 at a time, and I'm going to add a teaspoon of some kind of sugar that gives it a nice shiny surface at the end. So I just tend to put a little bit of honey in. So we'll boil the water and I'll see you in half an hour. It's 30 minutes since we shaped the bagels. The water has been boiling. It's got a little bit of honey in it, and I've also I've put the oven on at 230 Not in time, but in temperature. 230. Okay. We need a boiling tub, some wire racks, and our bagels, and something to flip the bagels over with, but also to rescue the bagels from the boiling water. So gently take your bagel, pop it in the water, and this pan will allow 3 bagels. I know that they are ready to be boiled because they float instantly. If your bagels sink to the bottom of the pan, then they are not ready. I'm going to wait somewhere in the region of 15 seconds. And you'll see they start to bubble and they start to expand. That means that you'll get a nice fluffy interior. I'm going to flip the bagels over. So we're now looking at the underside of the bagels. See that it doesn't look as nice, doesn't look as smooth? That's okay, because they will continue to be the bottom of the bagel. And that is roughly 15. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip them back over. Flip them back over. Flip them back over. Give them another 5 seconds. And they have expanded, you can see, relative to the other ones. So I'll take that out, shake some of the water off. And you can see, look, if I compare them, they've just started to expand. So I'm going to let them cool on a wire rack just for 5 minutes while I do the other bagels. Then they will be coated in a topping and baked in the oven. The trick is not to let your bagel deform too much and not to let your hands stick to the bagel. So these are the last 3. Now, while these ones are boiling, I'm going to put the dough balls into the oven so that they will be ready by the time I need to cook the bagels. I have a mixture of salt, sesame seeds and poppy seeds I'm going to dip my bagels into. They should be, you still have to handle them relatively gently, but they shouldn't fall apart when you dip and twist. See if I can sneak in as many of them as I can. These ones are pretty dry, the ones that I've taken out first. So these are going to go into the oven at 230 for 25 minutes. You may need to rotate the positions in the oven, and you may need to put a bit of water in the bottom of your oven to create some steam. Let me just show you the dough balls that the kids really love. Here we go, so they're almost done, those dough balls, so I'll take them out, and that's a little snack or a little treat for the kids. Okay, if you wanted to know how tasty or successful the dough balls are, here's what happens when you bake dough balls. We are 10 minutes into the bake. Let's just see how they're doing. Well, they are browning nicely and they have risen nicely. So we're 20 minutes into the bake. Let's see what they look like. Oh yeah, I think they are done. I'll get them out and give you the final shot. So, here we are. 6 out of the 9 bagels. The other 3 are cooling on a different rack. Yeah, they're not perfectly round or symmetrical, but that means you know that they were made by hand. I'll let you know what the crumb looks like once they've cooled down. Bagels have had an hour to cool down. I'm just going to show you what the crumb looks like inside without slicing my fingers. I can't work out how to keep the topping from coming off. in excess, but there you go. So, for me, it is light and fluffy, but also it'll be chewy when we eat it. I'll show you the sandwich at the end.